To order the Monday, July 8th, 2019 meeting of the Landmarks Commission. We'll start by taking the roll. Susan?
Here.
Veronica?
Present.
Justin?
Here.
Ron?
Here.
Ian?
Here.
And David?
Present.
Okay, everybody's here. Next item on the agenda is the approval for the agenda for the July 8th meeting. Any objections, changes, corrections to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 10th, 2019 meeting of the Landmarks Commission. The meeting minutes are in your packet. I assume everybody's had a chance to look at them. Is there anybody that has any corrections or comments in regards to last month's meeting minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item D1 in the agenda is Certificate of Appropriateness 19-15, consideration with possible action on a design review for soffit and fascia work at 816 Shawano Avenue. Jason, you want to give us a staff report on this one?
This is a repeat of last month. It's the wooden house over here in the West Side District. We had approved aluminum soffit material, provided that it ran in the same direction parallel to the faces of the building. The property owner went back to their contractor and said, hey, let's do this, and the contractor said, hey, that's not really practical or cost effective. We want to run it perpendicular to the walls. So staff recommendation hasn't so much changed. It's still recommending that you keep it as wood. It's kind of maybe snarky of me just to fall back on that. You've approved aluminum with a certain orientation. They're asking to change that orientation 90 degrees of what you had approved. So repeat business. I don't really have much to add to that. Here in the pictures, the bottom right, you see that soffit material. It's the beadboard, runs parallel to the walls of the house, meets up at a nice 45-degree angle in the corners. But this should look familiar to everyone.
I'm assuming the property owner is here.
Yes.
So do we want to open up the floor for comment?
Motion to open the floor.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hi. We have talked with our contractor as well as other contractors about running aluminum soffit directionality so that it's parallel to the house as the wooden soffit is. Because aluminum soffit is 16 inches wide by 12 inches long, and our current wooden soffit is 2 feet wide by, at the shortest distance from corner to corner, 30 feet long. In order for them to do aluminum soffit, they would need to install channel at the end of every 12 feet in length and down the center of the soffit. It's not the proper way to install aluminum soffit, and actually if they were to install it that way, it could cause sagging in the soffit. Any strong wind would cause the panels to move, which would be noisy and create damage to the panel. It would lose its longevity. It could separate from wind and the normal expansion and contraction from changes in temperature. We would also have concerns that with the additional seams that excessive moisture could enter the attic, as well as insects. You know, they're still looking at wrapping it, but having the soffit be installed so that it's perpendicular to the house. And I do have a letter from Tim Henn with Creative Home Technologies, and also from Mike Gilligan, the owner of Big and Small Home Improvement.
Are they tearing down the existing wood?
No.
Is that part of this? So they're just going over the top of it?
Yes.
Yeah, we're wrapping it. That's the plan.
Did you get a comparable price when you started this project to just repair the wood soffits that are there now?
Most of the contractors that we've talked to won't even deal with the wood. I believe the one that we did talk to, they looked at, repairing and replacing the wood, I think would be about $20,000.
Just so I'm clear on what you just described, you talked about channel pieces, and I'm not entirely familiar with what you're talking about. Are those the plastic sort of end pieces that
Yes,
finish it off?
it's the pieces that the soffit
Lock into.
lock into.
Like
to
a C
secure
channel
them.
almost,
All
that
right,
it locks into.
then I do know what you're referring to.
And then they have to put it down the middle as well to do the 16-inch width. And none of them will actually guarantee the work if they do it that way.
And so none of them would do it that way, that we
Okay.
talked to.
What's the intention of putting the soffit material up at all? I guess I'm lost a little bit. You're not
Because
taking
we
down
were
the
told by
wood.
the city we had to fix it.
Yes, there's some damage to the soffit that's currently there, so this would be to cover it and comply with city ordinances as well as preserve what's there.
When you said perpendicular,
So the,
instead of running lengthwise, we're on this way?
Yes.
Yes, like normal soffit.
Like you see.
On almost every other house you've ever seen has it perpendicular to the house.
My house is way old too, so.
Almost every other house.
Yeah, almost every.
Now, if I recall, our discussion the last time you were here was when we talked about going parallel to the house, was to recreate the look of the board, correct?
Correct.
So what I'm hearing is by having to have those channels in place, we're actually defeating that.
Yes.
Because then it won't recreate the existing image in aluminum, it will create a new image. Is that fair enough?
Correct.
Yes.
And with the fact that none of the contractors will guarantee the work if they do it, I'm kind of skeptical to even do it. Because like they said, it could take one windstorm to make it all blow down. If they put it the normal soffit way perpendicular to the house, it'll last 50 to 60 years.
About how much of the existing material is damaged or needs to be replaced?
At least a third, if not more.
But they're not going to replace it, correct?
Just covering.
They're
Well,
covering it.
we've checked into the replacing it with wood, and that's in excess of $20,000. If we do the fascia, gutter, and soffits all out of aluminum, that's under $10,000.
Why is it so much more on the wood?
Because most of the
Because
contractors
the wood
don't-
has to be tongue and grooved, it all has to be able to match in, so they would end up replacing all of it versus just the bad spots.
And most of the contractors won't deal with wood at this point.
you shouldn't be replacing all of it. It should be pieced in. You cut off the tongue if need be and do a section.
That's why I was asking how much is damaged.
I mean, what's there is tongue and groove. It could look tongue and groove without being tongue and groove.
Cut off the tongue and half the groove and patch in whatever's necessary.
is the damage caused by age, or was there a tree or something that hit the house?
It's caused by age.
I guess I looked at staff where there's an issue, it really comes down to cost at this point.
It does. I haven't seen any cost estimates for any of the work, that I recall anyway. Certainly none for wood repair. I suppose $20,000 to tear out all of the soffits and replace them may be realistic, but I'd be surprised that anybody would tear out all of the soffits and replace them.
I mean, I know there are products that do exactly what we identified last time. It's a case of whether that is cost prohibitive or not.
Well,
And how do we determine what is cost prohibitive versus our recommendation?
you don't. Let me pull up the ordinance.
I mean, I have a detail pulled up here from the manufacturer of total longboard siding and soffit, and it does exactly what we identified.
Then we need a contractor who will do it, and we haven't been able to find one.
We talk about demolition of a deteriorated building, saying that economic hardship or difficulty claimed by the owner is self-created. I don't know that we address economic hardship in maintenance.
What reason did contractors give that they wouldn't do the wood?
Several of them don't know how. They haven't dealt in that. They haven't used wooden soffit for, I don't know, 40, 50 years. So part of the problem is they don't know how to install it. It's just not what they're used to doing.
There's gotta be a reason why they stopped doing wood and soffit and went to aluminum soffit on every building, is my
Yeah,
understanding.
going to, just goes from, just on to maintenance free.
I'm sorry, what?
Goes from wood, which requires maintenance, to aluminum, which is almost maintenance free.
Exactly.
It's the whole thing.
And the aluminum products are cheaper than the tongue and groove is. But you can get tongue and groove boards probably at every home improvement store in town.
Right.
It's not like this is some sort of special material.
Right.
And any skilled carpenter could do tongue and groove installation.
Right.
This isn't rocket science either.
Wouldn't be surprised if it'd be cheaper to patch in wood in select areas than put in aluminum everywhere.
Right.
I would agree with that too.
But then we also have the cost of doing the gutters and the fascia added to it versus having one company come in and do the fascia gutters soffit all at once.
I don't know if it makes sense to read this or not.
This whole section?
Yeah, that upon application for a COA, the LC shall approve unless unless the proposed work would detrimentally change, destroy, or adversely affect any exterior feature of the improvement or site upon which the work is to be done. Or if the proposed exterior alteration does not conform to the purpose and intent of this ordinance. So it's kind of up to the commission then to determine whether or not this change is detrimentally changing, destroying, or adversely affecting an exterior feature of the historic house.
And if we deem it is,
then the COA is denied and they have the option to appeal that to the common council. The council can vote any way they like with or without regard to anything.
Is there anything special about the gutters that we haven't talked about, or, you know, you said, you know,
I think they're,
the bid includes.
it has existing gutters, yes, K-style.
It does, but if you look at the picture in the upper right-hand side, the downspout isn't even attached to the gutters in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. There's
Right.
no historic value of current gutters.
Okay.
The only item of, you know, historic merit here is that beadboard soffit. And, you know, the beadboard soffit is not the camel's back, that's not the straw that's going to break the camel's back, but,
right.
you know, it's a slippery slope. You have a wooden house with a fairly distinctive soffit. As he said, nobody's got this soffit, right? Well, you replace that with aluminum, then, you know, maybe the siding is the next thing that you want to talk about. You've already replaced some of the material, why not other material? And at some point, it does become the straw that breaks the back.
All right.
Just couldn't tell you what it is.
I'm not real excited about replacing that wood. I think it's really going to affect the look, but on the other hand, I appreciate the economic impact of this.
The irony is they're not replacing the wood. They're just covering it up.
No, yeah. The wood is, yeah,
And I don't know if
they're
that
losing that wood.
hides a
Would you
problem
say
that continues
losing?
to fester or not.
I mean, I think if the gutters were repaired, it may ease the burden on the soffit and on the fascia.
And you see a significant portion of damage in that top right photo.
Mhm.
I don't really know how to zoom in on that for you, but I don't know what drove that, if it's a roof issue, a gutter backup issue, or, and if it was a roof issue, are we talking about replacing the roof yet? Or just
Right now, we are doing projects of painting the house. We replaced the garage door per your guys' approval last month. We are looking at doing the soffit, fascia, and gutters. The roof is next year. We can't do it all in 1 year.
the city does offer a loan program, and this work would be eligible for tax credits through the state.
If it's deemed
historic,
right,
not as they're proposing to do it.
Correct. It would
then
be
it would be
the
ineligible.
work as proposed would be ineligible, but a new roof, repairing the soffit, and any other projects that maintain the historic integrity of the house would be bundleable into a tax credit project, which would be a 25% on the dollar return via income taxes.
20 or 25?
25 for homeowners, 20 for commercial. So again, I haven't solicited any bids or quotes, but between tax credits, loan programs, and competent carpentry repair versus wholesale replacement, I don't know that that route isn't more economically viable than new aluminum wraps.
Except we can't find a contractor that's willing to do wood.
Well, let me pose this to the members of the commission who are more familiar with construction. I mean, what do you think about that? Finding someone that can do that sort of work?
I think those people exist. If I design a building that way, then it gets constructed. I mean, a carpenter, this isn't,
It's basic carpentry.
And some scaffolding.
And some scaffolding.
Scaffold, yeah, you need scaffolding
But you need
either
that
way.
anyways.
Yeah,
I mean, I get a very good sense that you really would like to get this aluminum. I understand the many reasons
Well,
why.
I just want to get all the stuff done and taken care of to the ordinances that the city has in place already, and to be able to just be able to sit back in my own house and not have to deal with this stuff anymore. I mean, this has been ongoing for 3 years now for us.
Well, 3 months for this purchase.
3 months for this one, but we had the carport removed, we had to have the shop removed, we had to have
Right.
other things fixed in 2016. So at what point do we not cut our losses and get out of this house? I mean, it's already costed us way more than it would to maintain a brand new house.
Yep.
In just the past 3 years. I mean, I'm honestly not enjoying coming to these meetings, being told what I have to do and what I don't have to do to my own house.
I certainly am sympathetic to that, but is the mission of this group to protect, not just consider one person, but look at an entire neighborhood and the effects there. Similar, if someone were to do something to your neighboring house, we would try and protect that from adversely impacting yours. So we do look big picture, and I understand you're living in what you've got, and I certainly sympathize with that. But I guess hearing from those people who know more about construction, and my inherent understanding is I'm surprised that you would have difficulty finding someone that can do the work. Because there's a lot of woodworking out there, and I mean, that makes a great deal of sense.
But I've been looking for fascia, gutter, and soffit people as per the ordinance that we were told that we needed to fix. I haven't looked for carpenters because I didn't figure most of them would go up 50 feet in the air to do carpentry.
Sounds like that's an option to explore.
Okay. So I'll come back in another month so you guys can tell me that now that you've explored it, you can't do it.
It's more time on our behalf. At this point, we've spent 3 months trying to take care of this. This is time from work, which is another hardship because we have to work. And, you know, trying to figure out all this out, being there when contractors are coming.
are we allowed to make contractor suggestions? I don't know if there will be, I know.
The city is not allowed to make them. If you'd like to talk to them after this meeting, you all can do whatever you would like. But
Okay,
city
that's, I
employees
kind
are
of
not
thought
allowed
because
to.
it'd be like we're endorsing
Yes.
one contractor over another.
So if you guys have any recommendations that after this meeting you would like to pass along, we can certainly facilitate them. I can make any recommendations.
Have you guys seen things like this go to Common Council before? I mean, what are the chances that they appeal this and the Common Council?
This would be our first appeal.
No.
I have no frame of reference. to
And not
give,
no
but
one.
This is just what
yeah,
we took up
okay.
last fall.
Right, well, this particular thing, but there was a similar board prior,
That's
right?
historic
There was no
preservation, but we didn't have the authority.
Nothing, okay, so
So that's
I can't imagine, well, I don't know, I shouldn't imagine, I guess. But I mean, as a resident of this neighborhood, for one thing, just the fact that someone's doing work on the house is, or wants to, you know, or has to, I guess, but it's good to have things being done, money being spent. It improves my neighborhood just to have something improved rather than I mean, I know improvement in our sense of the word is different from improvement in the sense that I'm talking about now, but I'm inclined to say the thing is being preserved underneath. The wood is there anyway. If it needs to be at some point, you know, restored or whatever later, that's not. It's not. We're not destroying the board underneath necessarily. So.
It sounds like you're on the verge of making a motion, but the floor is still open.
I'm not.
So I guess,
I'm not on the verge. I'm just expressing my my.
Well, I think that's an option.
Yeah.
And so, I guess the comment is do we want to close the floor at this point and explore some motions? Any other comments from the homeowner?
No.
No.
I'll make a motion to close the conversation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so, you know, we've got this issue in front of us. The options, as I see it, is reject the current application and ask them to repair and restore the existing materials on the soffit. Another option would be to allow the application to be approved, knowing that, as Justin just said, the existing materials are essentially being left in place, and at some time in the future, the home could be restored because they're not being removed.
And the impact really, visually, I'm going to say not a huge deal, maybe to me, from as a guy walking by on the street with my dog every day. I mean, I like historic buildings. That's how, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I'm probably not gonna sit around and oogle someone's soffit for too long. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
That being said, I don't disagree with what Jason commented, that now it's a slippery slope.
Right. No, I understand.
We're back here a year from now reviewing that they want to put vinyl siding on the front of the house. And
sure, and at that time I would say not a chance, right? Vinyl siding would be too obvious to me. But, you know, that's, we all have our own perspective on it, I guess.
And if we reject the request tonight, the homeowners do have two options. They have the option of going ahead and restoring the wood soffit that's there, or they can go to the common council and appeal. And we can leave it up to the common council.
We'll make a motion for denial of revised proposal and recommend that either the recommendation that was made last month remain in place or a wood soffit material in keeping with the existing be patched and repaired.
When you say the recommendation from last month, referring to the aluminum going parallel?
Correct.
See, I mean, from the description of it, it sounds like that would just look terrible. And that actually would defeat what we're trying to do, which was recreate. So I would suggest removing that idea.
Is there a product that's seamless in lengths of 20, 30 feet or something?
Yeah.
I think the issue, David, is I agree as the homeowner presented it, I would agree with you. But the problem is that their contractors are grabbing the off-the-shelf traditional aluminum soffit material, which isn't made to go parallel to the building, and it is in those particular widths and lengths. And so, it doesn't work. That the contractors have shown no imagination or effort whatsoever to come up with the appropriate material that could go over this and replicate the existing look. They're just using, you know, your standard soffit material that you get at any of the big box stores and slapping it up there. So I think
this is an example of a product in wood that's doing exactly what that is, and that's an aluminum product.
What's the width of that product?
It comes in varying widths. You can get, and it's I don't know what the length of it is, 12, 14, 16 feet. So it would be a piece of tongue-improved material. So there's material there. Is it going to be more expensive than the off-the-shelf material? Probably. But is it the right thing to do? I guess that's. I think our commission here is here to enforce that element of our city. So, I mean, like, you know, I mean, you know, smoke detectors. You know, are they expensive? Yeah, they can be.
Especially the historic ones.
But do you know, at some point, it's the right thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we have to look at what our mission is, and not the cost on this. If the cost is prohibitive, and this common council wants to make a different recommendation, then they have the option to do that.
What's the name of that product that you just showed us the picture?
It's called longboard siding and soffit.
And you guys want to add this?
No, I've been in a similar position where if a motion fails, then the corollary becomes the defective thing. If you make that a motion and it's seconded and it fails, that does not necessarily then mean that the COA application is approved. Just wanted to.
So, Ian, you made a motion, and David, you'd kind of challenged.
Just the one aspect of it, but Paul, your point is compelling about how there's a lack of imagination by the contractors. And I mean, if you found just that quickly a material like that, that's convincing to me. So I'm okay with that, that portion of your motion.
Okay, I will second the motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I think we're up for a vote.
So a yes vote means you are agreeing with the A to deny. The motion passed. The application is denied 6-1.
Okay.
So I'll know you guys tomorrow what the process for appeal, if you'd like to go that route.
Next.
Open the floor.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to open the floor for all of it.
Oh.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. Council's next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, so the 16th, so you can appeal it then. 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is D2, Certificate of Appropriateness 19-21. Consideration with possible action on the design review for door replacement at 228 North Adams Street. Jason?
So here we have on the map in blue, from a preservation perspective, it's two separate buildings, but the North Adams address we're talking about is the corner building, the former Liberty Cafe, and any number of other tenants over the years. Yes. And the request is to replace the door with the arrow on the far right so as to match the other two doors to the left that have already been replaced. And I note that the door on the far right to be replaced is not a historic feature of the building. It's a replacement door from some decades ago. And the door to take its place is new and would match the other two that have already been replaced in the previous handful of years. So with that in mind, we're replacing non-historic material with other non-historic material, and my recommendation is to approve the request noting that the proposed door suits the style of the building, does not impact the historic integrity of the building or the integrity of the district. Seems like a good idea. You'll note that the proposed door is a Pella Architect Series full light, matches the other two. I don't have much else to add on it.
I don't have a lot to say on this. I would make a motion to approve this as submitted.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
That passes 6-0, one abstention.
Next item on the agenda is item D3, Certificate of Appropriateness 19-22, consideration of possible action on a design review for new windows at 310 Pine Street.
If you will, consider the same map that we looked at previously. I mentioned there are two buildings. The Liberty Cafe is kind of at the far right behind the tree. This is the other building. I forget the address. Is it 300? 310. Thank you. So, also a contributing building within the downtown historic district. Very beautiful building. The proposal is to replace the third-story windows there that you see facing Pine Street with new windows that will be visually identical, noting that this is part of a multi-phase project to replace all the windows on the building, and also noting that the windows on the side and the rear, for the most part, have already been replaced prior to the formation of the Landmarks Commission. There is a handy sketch on the right half here, if you will. If you look at the very bottom right, the row of green windows, that's the third floor. That's the immediate plan, replacing those windows. The blue ones on the second story are part of a future planned phase of replacing all these windows. On the left, I've copied and pasted some window details. I note that these are the sorts of windows typically approved by SHPO and the Department of the Interior in building rehabilitation projects. Conversely, I note that the windows being replaced are probably the original windows, and indeed have some historic integrity and value to them. But you need to weigh here the facts of windows were already being swapped out. This is phase 2 of a 3-phase process that had already been begun. The new windows are generally acceptable to the Secretary of the Interior and the SHPO, and probably qualify for tax credits if the owner were to apply for that. I don't know if the owner has done that.
Jason, SHPO is what?
The State Historic Preservation Officer. So the Department of the Interior, the federal group, they're the ones that oversee tax credits and the keepers of the National Register. Within each state, SHPO is kind of like their Siamese liaison. Usually SHPO stamps something and that's good enough for the Department of the Interior, and vice versa. The SHPO is the more active participant. SHPO is the gatekeeper to the tax credit program, the federal tax credit program, and the state tax credit program. The heartache here, if there is any heartache, is that the Secretary of the Interior standards call for maintaining historic stuff, historic material, like historic windows. But, you know, on, say, the Whitney School, they're replacing all the windows because the existing windows aren't historic, and I think they're proposing these Pella Architect Series windows to be a good substitute for what had originally been there. When I've looked at the building along the side where windows have already been replaced, I can't tell that they're replacement windows. They look original to me. That will be the case on the front if you choose to approve the COA before you. The property owner is here. He may be better qualified to answer specific questions than I am on this. But the recommendation is to approve, recognizing that the windows proposed are of high quality that usually meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for replacement windows, and recognizing that wholesale window replacement had already begun on this project before the Landmarks Commission was formed.
Discussion?
So ultimately, all windows will be matching and replacements, correct?
So I'm colorblind, but the red ones on the sides and the back have already been swapped out. The plan is for the green ones to be swapped out next, followed by the blue ones in a year, 2 or 3, as I understand it.
And those will all be consistent.
They will. Now, if hypothetically nothing had been swapped out yet, and the plan was presented to me, I would probably recommend against it, because the windows are original, they contribute to the historic integrity of the building, recognizing still that the replacement windows are of an acceptable type, but between you and me, I err on the side of being very conservative and saying, you know, original windows should be fixed. But here we've got an odd situation where the Landmarks Commission was born in the middle of a multi-phased project. And the new windows will match the old windows. So you'll have to do with that as you please. I suppose the letter of the Secretary of the Interior Standards would say no, and then I'm telling you as a real person, but it's already begun, and the replacement windows are of a very high quality.
I think the key point for me is what Jason explained earlier, that from the street level, the replacement windows match the existing windows almost exactly, that you cannot tell the difference between the new windows and what's there now. The Pella Architect series is designed for this purpose. And I guess I'm saying I don't have a problem with this in this application.
And typically what the SHPO and Department of the Interior looks for in replacement windows is that 3-dimensional grille mounted to the exterior and interior faces of the window panes themselves. More often than not, the off-the-shelf option at Home Depot or something is going to have a grille work that's solely sandwiched between the panes of glass with nothing on the interior or exterior, which frankly makes Windexing a lot easier. But the historic nature of this calls for that 3-dimensional texture with the shadow lines being cast appropriately, and these windows accomplish that. It's not an endorsement for Windex or Home Depot by any means.
Any other discussion, questions? Entertain a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we're up for a vote.
I have this approved, 1 abstention.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is item E1, staff level certificate of appropriateness applications.
We had 3. Top left, 709 South Quincy is non-contributing within Astor, and they want to replace the brick paver sidewalk walkway from the driveway to the front door with a identical brick paver sidewalk walkway from the driveway to the front door. No problem. 726 Law has been before the LC to discuss their porch project. They have approval through the state, SHPO, to put a new roof on the building. The state specified which asphalt shingles to use, and the homeowner is using those asphalt shingles. I think the homeowner is pursuing Wisconsin state tax credits for that project, so that's a very good thing. 620 South Jackson, the third of the 3 in Astor. Here's a very small concrete walkway from the driveway to the back door, as you see there. The cracked part they want to tear out and replace with concrete walkway. None of this is visible from any public right-of-way. I'm surprised they were kind enough to approach the preservation staff with this project. So we approve that too.
Any questions? Next item is E2, review city raise and repair orders and demolitions.
We received one raise repair order. It's against 416 North Chestnut. This is nearly adjacent to the parking lot grassy area where the Fort Howard Hospital once stood. That's what the big grassy area is, kind of depicted in the bottom right. That's connecting to the apartment parking lots where the hospital once was. The integrity of this building isn't there. It's been given a stone textured appearance where it was likely a wooden clapboard originally. Replacement windows. I didn't see anything in the city directories that alerted me to George Washington having owned a house or anything like that. So, LC staff has no leading heart issues with this building being either repaired or raised. On the bottom left photo, I suppose in the distance along the sidewalk, that's kind of what we're looking at. We approach the corner where the hospital building museum once stood. Any questions?
Was that the only one?
That was the only one.
Do you need a motion to put those on file or
Yes, please. Motion to receive and place on file.
second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item E3, staff update.
I don't have a whole lot for you. We did hand out these packets that we just got from SHPO. Basically just info packets about the FIS to be CLG, what they offer, their regular updates. They have these as an annual report, so we'll get these every year. Also this week we are meeting with somebody to administer our first revolving loan of the year. So we probably are going to do 2 each year, so this will be our first one. It's a house painting on Quincy, so once that's approved, I'll bring that back to our next meeting to show you guys what they're planning to do. They're also going for tax credits with that program, so our project, so we're pretty excited about that. I don't know if there's anything else.
Just in case you didn't know, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, receives copies of all of our agendas and minutes. As a certified local government, they pay attention to everything that you're doing. They're not going to come knocking and say, you made a bad call at any point. You know, they're not the Monday morning quarterbacks by any means. But they do track things like COA approval rates and appeal rates, and they try to do some customer satisfaction surveys too. So I don't want you to think that you're just operating in a vacuum. There are other CLGs throughout the state, I think 72 others in addition to Green Bay, and they're all doing the same thing you do. And at the State Historic Preservation Office, they pay attention to what you do.
Anything else? Date of our next meeting is Monday, August 12th. If there are no other comments, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.